it's more intriguing to dig in the closet of Drake than it is to dig in the closet of Kendrick, because Drake is the bigger artist. So if you keep poking fun or you keep revealing certain secrets that he was trying to hide, people are more intrigued by that. So for Kendrick to do this and execute successfully like he's doing, because he's dropping a lot of music and a lot of exposures coming through that, he's able to widen that chink in Drake's armor. And to be honest, he's leaving Drake more vulnerable than he necessarily should have.
To give you a piece of my mind.
From Normal Bros, and we back at it again. First of all, I'm gonna need you to tell a friend and tell a friend and tell a mother effing friend to follow and subscribe to your boys. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and other podcast platforms as well. You can catch us on YouTube and TikTok. That's Far From Normal Podcast. Make sure you type that into a search engine and see the boys on those clips. We got everything for you. We got the website, www.farfromnormalpodcast.com. We got all the links up there. Make sure you check it out. Of course, YouTube. We're on Instagram as well. That's far_from_normal_podcast. Check it out. You already know. It's your boy Fuzzy Vision. I see the world clear, and I see the future, and the future is bright. You already know. Fuzzy Vision with 2 N's. If you have any likes, dislikes, rebuttals, or you want to be on the podcast, hit your boy up. Sonny, drop the handle, baby.
You already know what it is. It's your boy Sonny Frames. You can catch me on the gram at Sonny, SONNY, Frames, double S at the end. Make sure when you do check out my Instagram page, check out my stories, because I usually post a lot of stuff that has to do with motivation, inspiration, chasing your dream, and execution. So let's not forget, any dream that you're trying to achieve, the only way that you'll ever achieve it is through execution and putting a plan to motion. So make sure that you don't just stay in the dream world, and make sure you make it a reality.
You're not that guy, pal. Trust me. You're not that guy.
And Fuzzy, let's get him. Boy, oh boy, have you been hearing what is going on in pop culture today?
Well, I mean, if you haven't heard, Kendrick versus Drizzy, the boy from the city. You already know. From the 6 side, you already know. So what's your thoughts on that?
Oh my goodness.
It's bubbling up now, man. Number one versus number 2.
It's getting crazy. I mean, especially when I'm looking at, when I go online on social media and I start seeing what other guys are doing, in the sense that, like, on social media, a lot of memes are coming out, a lot of skits are coming out about 100%. The beef. And it's funny because I asked myself, because I don't know, for whatever reason, I guess when you're at the top, everybody wants to go after the king, right? Yeah. Everybody wants the crown. So what's currently happening with Drake, a lot of people are trying to take him down off the throne. He's been there for quite some time, almost damn near 2 decades.
Yeah, he's been there.
He's been there for quite some time.
I'd say been up top on the game, at least from like 2010 going onwards. Yeah. He's been near the top to being the top guy.
Yeah. So he's been there for quite some time, and he's been on a lot of features. He's put on a lot of guys.
Number ones galore. Yeah. I mean, he's been on top. He's been on top of the game. Obviously, he's from the city. He's from Toronto, so we always show love to the 6 side, but here's the thing. I feel like when you're at a certain point in any industry, I think when you reach the top and you're at a point where you seem to be untouchable, I think people become opportunistic when it's time to take you down. So in this case, Kendrick, seeing the chink in Drake's armor, obviously, he's already been poked at by other rappers like Pusha T, obviously, we already know, and other rappers before that. But now it seems like the whole industry has some beef with Drake that now they're addressing all together. So it makes it that Drake has to verse 20v1.
Yeah, see, it's funny in that sense, because at the beginning, I didn't see it as Kendrick having a strategy to this his plan in terms of attack. But now that you mentioned it, everybody in the industry is trying to attack him all at the same time simultaneously. And it would just make sense for Kendrick to also get into it, because he's been out of the game for quite some time. He hasn't been dropping any records, although Kendrick is he's a lyrical genius. And he has so many projects that he's dropped that, as done great, has done amazing numbers, but for whatever reason he stepped out for a while. Maybe it's because he's trying to, concoct something behind the scenes, in the lab. Typically some guys do that. They disappear for a while just so they can make just better music, be more lyrical, have a better message. Some people like quality rather than quantity, so they tend to, hold back instead of, just dropping a lot. But Drake has been consistent. He's been putting a lot of music out there. He's just been flooding the market, with his talent and spreading his arms to whatever talent is out there and incorporating himself and adjusting. So I guess he's seen an opportunity right now, and he's been gunning at Drake, and they've been going back and forth. And yeah, let me know what's your thoughts on that whole bonanza.
I don't know. For me, like, it's a zero-sum game. Like, for Drake, Drake doesn't get much benefit to this beef, in my opinion, because you have to look at it. First of all, Kendrick is known as the number 2 in this situation. Okay. He's not known as the number 1. He's not the A side. He's the B side if you're looking in terms of career, like what he's accomplished, right? So for him to come at Drake is of no disadvantage to himself, especially if other people are coming at Drake too, because he must have released a diss record called Like That with on Future's album, because Future dropped a couple albums. So on this album, Future's coming at him. A$AP Rocky, you got a bunch of different rappers coming at him. So pretty much Drake has to go against a bunch of rappers rather than just compared to just dealing with one rapper. And Kendrick has to look at it, well, if not any better time to come at this guy, it's when other people are against him, because then you can get popular opinion. Popular opinion will lean towards you more so than lean towards Drake, because if everyone's hating on one person, sometimes that might sway the audience to see like, oh, who's really the truth teller here in this situation, who really has skeletons in the closet. So it's more intriguing to dig in the closet of Drake than it is to dig in the closet of Kendrick, because Drake is the bigger artist. So if you keep poking fun or you keep revealing certain secrets that he was trying to hide, people are more intrigued by that. So for Kendrick to do this and execute successfully like he's doing, because he's dropping a lot of music and a lot of exposures coming through that, he's able to widen that chink in Drake's armor. And to be honest, he's leaving Drake more vulnerable than he necessarily should have been, maybe if he never engaged.
Yes, and I find that interesting because, I think the next biggest beef that I could remember was when 50 was going up against, Fat Joe, Jadakiss.
Okay. Back in the day.
Yeah, back in the day. He went up against all those guys, and even though that beef, it looked like, they had the numbers, 50 still was managed to come up. He still came up on top out of all those guys, even though they came with a coalition to try and take him down. It didn't work.
Yeah, you're right.
It didn't work. So
there've been artists that.
So in history, sometimes even with the coalition, it doesn't necessarily work. But and Jadakiss was very lyrical.
Well, there's a lot of guys he was beefing with.
Yes, he was beefing with a lot of guys.
So you're talking about like heavy hitters.
Yeah, heavy hitters in the game.
I wouldn't say he necessarily won that beef, but the beef definitely.
But he didn't lose.
He didn't lose the beef.
Yeah,
it got squashed because obviously it could have went a lot further. Now with this beef we're talking about, it's more on a personal note where we haven't seen that.
Yeah, we haven't seen that.
Like, we've seen certain shit, but now how rap beef works, it's more personal. So personal shots. So it's about who can expose who the best. Yeah. If you notice, when Drake was going against Pusha T, he exposed him about having a child, right? You know, basically having like a bastard child with a porn star.
Yeah.
And that led to like obviously Drake being exposed and coming up, and that news got revealed through a diss track, making it even worse, right? So now with Kendrick, what he's releasing apparently, he's saying this guy has a daughter and has kids running around and all type of allegations. So it's just a game of who can expose who the most. And like I said, Kendrick can easily speculate, and that speculation will be looked at by more people than Drake speculating about Kendrick. No one cares about what Kendrick has done in his past and what women he's with and things he's done, he's not as relevant. So that's what I'm saying. So Drake's going against a guy that has less to lose. So for me, if I was Drake in that situation, I would have, bowed out from the first diss record. I probably would have took it easy from that point. I would have gave what I need to give, maybe 2 records, stopped there. But the way Kendrick's going, he's going like 5 records deep, 6 records deep. Yeah. So I don't know.
So there's a lot of low blows that's occurring now.
Yeah, 100%.
I'm pretty sure he has advisors that are trying to tell him, hey, Drake. But I think he has 2 camps. I think he has the camp that's telling him, no, you got to get at this guy. This guy can't, make you look like a fool out here. But then he also has another camp that's telling him, it's not even worth it. Kendrick's not relevant right now. You're still relevant. People are looking to take you down. You already responded to him. If he wants to keep on responding, let him keep on responding. Eventually, he's going to fade away because he's not dropping any tracks. He's not out there that, people are checking for Kendrick.
But here's the thing about the beef, though, is that he's actually dropping good records. Like, Kendrick has kind of Drake. But
Drake is dropping good records too.
He's dropping good records as well. But Kendrick has some higher frequency. I guess you can say they're equivalent. To be fair, I mean, some of the records you're gonna maybe listen to one time, and then some of the records you might play at a club or something like that. But I just think that if I was Drake in that situation, he's in a tough spot. He either has to decide to go to war or decide to be docile. But now, if he's docile or he decides to say, you know what, I'm just gonna ignore the shots that are being taken at him, then a lot of people wouldn't respect him as the number one guy.
Yeah.
So he does have to defend his crown. So I'm not saying that Drake should have not did anything in response, but at the end of the day, he shouldn't be going back and forth because it's just like anything. You don't go back and forth to decide a winner. I mean, you just gotta drop what you had to drop, address what you had to address, and then leave it at that. Let the people decide. Because at the end of the day, the rap game comes down to the music. It comes down to the success. It doesn't come down to who's being exposed. Yes, we'll say that person won the battle, but who won the real war? It's the person that's most successful at the end. So that's how I see that.
Yeah, I was kind of debating with myself in the sense of what would be the smartest thing to do in a situation like that, especially if you're on top of the whole rap game, and you got people trying to attack you from all different fronts, and then there's one standout person, and then you feel like this is the best competitor for you to actually like put a response on. And I guess at the end of the day, you have to ask yourself, how many records do you need to drop before you say, you know what, I'm done? Because if this guy's not going to stop and I'm not going to stop, where are we going with this?
Well, I guess that's the competitive nature of, whatever industry you're in. So sometimes, you go above and beyond because this person's pushing you to become greater. So in his case, you have to look at it as number 1 versus number 2. They know they have to come with their A game. They know they have to get the good enough material to put on a piece of paper, go record it, and drop the song. Because at the end of the day, they're being judged quickly, and obviously your response rate, how you're dropping music, what beats you're using, wordplay, everything's being judged. Now they're being judged at a quicker pace because the frequency of the music that's being dropped, right? So it's showing us as fans, we're getting good music because we're seeing these guys go at it. And they have to step it up a notch each record. They can't, drop the ball because their opponent will gain ground on them. So pretty much we're seeing them at their best in terms of what they're releasing. Maybe, yes, it's not going to last so long in the club and be anything that's going to change music or anything. But at the end of the day, it's keeping people's ears peeled for what they're about to drop, new music, new projects, what other people have to say about it. So it's keeping the music relevant on all fronts. So in terms of the industry, they're the ones that's winning, obviously, because this promotes 2 big artists with other artists in the mix. I mean, everyone else is being suppressed. So whoever had a release or drop in music,
oh man, this was a bad time to drop.
Bad time to drop. You're being suppressed. But in terms of the big hitters, the money makers, you never know what this could do. This could be a good thing for music in terms of creating maybe a divide, and this West Coast versus, up
East Coast.
North or East Coast or, Canada versus America.
Yeah.
Because now we're starting to see that little bit of beef being, you know.
I mean, they could take it pretty far. You know what I mean? They could definitely capitalize off it, especially if they're trying to get a record. I mean, album
100%.
to drop. I mean, this would be the perfect time to be working on an album while keep doing diss tracks.
Yeah, and then having that to
use that promo, and then after you drop your album, and you know people are gonna be like, yo, this must be fire. You know what I mean? I've been keeping up with the Drake and Kendrick war. I mean, it would be a more modern day beef. I mean, at a lower scale, I would say the most recent other than them was, again, I'll go back to 50 and Kanye.
Yeah, that was a little bit constructed.
Yeah, a little constructed, but again, we don't know how this one is, if this is constructed or not.
Yes, you're right.
You know what I mean? So, but the point of the matter is, it helps sales. It helps sales for Kanye. I know 50 didn't do too well on the sales just because the matchup was a little off, but I think with Kendrick and Drake, their matchup is pretty equal in a sense. But Drake is the more popular artist because he has more records that are out there that, you know.
No, I'd say Drake is severely more popular than Kendrick.
Yes.
I think he has like a way more.
No, he has definitely a bigger archive for sure. He has definitely a bigger archive and everything.
Catalog.
But again, if they were strategic, dropping an album during this time period, more on the Kendrick's end, would be beneficial for his numbers.
100%. Yes, 100%. That would work for Kendrick for sure. But I'm kind of thinking about musically now, like what would you want to listen to? Like after hearing all this stuff, like what would really hit now? Because now I'm trying to think. Drake does the melodic shit. You already know he does a lot of singing, all that melody shit for the women, you know, at the beach, this, that. Then he mix up the rap in there and all that type of stuff for the clubs and all that. But, you know, Drake's not like a necessarily aggressive rapper. He doesn't make music like that. So I'm just interested to know like what his new releases are gonna be. Because I mean, they're trying to make the boy look sweet out there. I'm just saying, I'm like, if everyone's coming at you, it's suggesting something. It's suggesting that, you know, at this point people are thinking you're sweet and you can be tested. You know, so is that true? So I want to see what Drake does with the music, because he's been dropping music, but again, it hasn't been hard-hitting music. So I wonder if this could change the style in which he releases, especially his next record, whatever he's gonna drop. For Kendrick, again, he can go many ways with it, because again, he's not the number one. He's always switching up his sound and what he does. So he might be on his bullshit too. So I'm interested to see who releases music first, like, and makes a project out of it and tries and reaps the benefit of the battle.
100%. And off this topic, on another note, I wanted to talk about the NBA and what's going on right now and how there's a new era.
The NBA is looking crazy. NBA
that is emerging. There's a new era that's emerging.
Yeah, like, so obviously we came in we watched ball in the same era.
Yeah.
We watched it when LeBron's getting drafted, Kobe's in the league, Dirk Nowitzki, all these old school players, and we seen those guys fizzle out, like the older players, obviously the Kobe's, Dirks, the Tim Duncans, and we seen that older era fizzle away when like LeBron, Dwayne Wade, Carmelo Anthony, and a lot of those new guys started coming in. And with the playoffs going on right now, we're starting to see the dawn of a new age, because the likes of Steph Curry, LeBron, KD, you know, James Harden, Paul George, Westbrook, Kawhi Leonard, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Damian Lillard, Devin Booker.
That's damn near, you just said 10 people.
I'm telling you about like
crazy.
10 guys that are like, you know, a lot of those guys are Hall of Famers. A lot of these guys have always been in the, you know, at least second round.
Yeah.
And all these guys got eliminated.
Chris Paul, let's not forget about him. He's
all those guys, all the veteran players that are out in the league. Even Embiid is out. And it's just crazy. We're in the second round, and we have new teams like OKC, Thunder.
And these are smaller markets we're talking about.
Dallas Mavericks,
Denver. Did you say Denver Nuggets?
Yeah, of course, Denver Nuggets. You got the Pacers. Obviously, you got Boston in there, but you got some small markets.
There's only one big market. All the other ones are small markets.
Yeah,
except New York. New York is a big.
New York's a big market, but small market in terms of like what they've done in the playoffs recently, right? So it's looking like a dawn of a new age, and we're seeing these young players kill it. Like Anthony Edwards, I just watched game 1 versus the Denver Nuggets, and this guy went for 43, bro.
43.
That guy's balling out of control, bro.
He's a young bull. He's ready.
Bull.
He's ready. I mean, the energy he's coming out with is amazing. He came with the same energy I felt that he came with against Phoenix. When he played them, he had no fear in his heart. He felt like he was better than Booker. He felt that he was going to go in there and dominate the paint, and he had the players necessary, and he had the players and pieces necessary to win in that series. He didn't look at Phoenix as a threat or some menace that was going to pose a problem to him.
You know, it's crazy because when I first seen Anthony Edwards come to the league, no one really had it that he was...
At least
I think he did.
Pick.
I think he did win Rookie of the Year, but no one at least had him as like maybe a transcendent player, somebody that's going to change a franchise severely or anything like that. I think we all thought he'd be a good player, but this he's something else, man. I watched him like the other night, and that boy can ball. Like that boy can hoop. So I'm trying to figure out like who's gonna win it this year. It looks like either you got a new young guy hoisting the title, or you got maybe like a team like Boston or maybe Denver going back to the finals. But
if Denver goes to the finals against Boston, I'm going to give it to Denver.
You got Denver?
I got Denver just because they got Jokic, and he's just who's going to stop him on Boston?
Well, yes, if they go to that far, but now they're dealing with Minnesota, and they look like.
But if Minnesota, I think if Minnesota can beat Denver, I think they're going to be crowned the new champs.
Yeah, that's interesting. I love to see it. I love to see it happen. I love to see the league change. New guys coming in, and like we can see what the legacies have in store for those players and what's going on. But to get off of ball, anyways. How have things been, man? How have things been with the year? Because now it's very nice outside. So I know me and you, we're training for a Spartan run. You want to explain that?
Oh, yeah, the Spartan run's coming up next week, actually.
Yeah.
In terms of my training regimen, it hasn't really changed.
Yeah.
I think I felt that it didn't need too much changing. It's more of obstacle courses that we're going to be doing, 5K run in between those obstacle courses, 20 obstacle courses. I think, again, my training method is good enough to do the obstacles. It'll be interesting to do because I've never done something of that sort. So that's something that's new to me, and it's going to be a great experience. I'm doing it with a lot of guys that I know of. You're doing it. And I think it'll just be a great experience, and I like to challenge myself and compete to the highest level, and just being in that environment and seeing other athletes and seeing how they perform and how I'm going to perform is going to be interesting. And yeah, I can't wait to do it next week. What's your thoughts on the Spartan race and how you're training?
For me, like I said, I'm always in training mode.
Okay.
I'm never really too relaxed. I'm never taking too much days off when it comes to training in general. So, that's usually how me and you operate. We don't wait for a race to commence before we start training, or we don't wait to sign up for a race and then start training. We're usually training before the sign up period anyway. So we're always in good shape. I think when it comes to maybe challenging ourselves, we might have to push harder.
Yeah.
We might have to have more of a regiment, more of a routine that we can commit to. We might have to alter certain things we do within our workouts. But I think, at a certain point when you instill certain disciplines in your lifestyle, you don't fall off the wagon. So you're usually always prepared for any type of feat, whether that's physical or mental, having mental fortitude or that physical fortitude, or resilience. Because when we go to this 5K sprint with the 20 obstacles, I know it's going to be challenging, but I also know that I'm prepared regardless if I train specifically for this or if I didn't train specifically
So
for
mentally,
this.
you're already prepared.
So mentally I'm prepared because I'm willing to push myself and push the limit if it's necessary to get it done. And when you have that type of confidence, you gain that through competence, and that's by putting in the work. So I think that, you know, a lot of people they want to know why we get into maybe certain challenges. Would you like to explain what attracts us to doing things that would be perceived to be hard or, you know, grueling or time consuming and, you know, rigorous? Why do you think we gravitate towards these things where a lot of people find themselves running away from those type of things?
Well, one, it separates you from the pack. It means that, you know, you're far from normal. You're doing stuff that the regular everyday person doesn't want to do. They don't see no benefit in doing. They don't feel the benefit of competing to that level. I think usually when you get to a certain age, you're more focused on work and, you know, you got bills to pay, you got a family to take care of. And, you know, on the days that you have off, you want to enjoy it with your friends. You want to have your leisure time, go to the bar, you know, go pick up some women. You want to, you know, go on dates and stuff of that sort. I think as you continuously get older, you have to find hobbies and things that will keep your mind occupied as well as discipline at the same time, that will help you in maintaining your physical health as well as your mental health. Because again, a lot of people don't tend to address mental issues that they may be facing, you know, stress at work, you know, they'll use alcoholic beverages to, you know, to consume in order for them to feel better about their current situation, when they could have just went to the gym. You know, they could have picked up some kind of hobby, whether that was some kind of artistry, whether that was picking up an instrument, picking up a language, doing painting or dancing or yoga or some kind of meditation or breath work or cold plunging. There's so many different variety of things that people can do to help, you know, fortify their mind and make it stronger, but they tend to go to things that are not as productive and more detrimental in their life, which is a shame and unfortunate because, you know, that kind of cuts down their lifespan without them even knowing it. You know what I mean? Especially if you want to spend more time with your family, you do want to take care of your physical health as well as your mental health in order for you to, you know, be the most productive when you're around family members or around your own kids.
You know, I think I do this reason why I like to challenge myself, and I believe you have the same beliefs as me. I think the main reason why we do this is because we see that, you know, a human has so much potential. And I think when we look at ourselves in the mirror, we realize that there's so much potential that can be attained if we put in the work. And I think when we decide to do things that challenge ourselves, we're saying to ourselves that we're willing to test our potential. We're willing to put our potential to work and see what we're really capable of.
New frontiers.
Yeah, because a lot of the times we do challenges. A lot of the times we're not familiar with what we're doing. Sometimes we're very uncomfortable with what we're doing. I remember running was like that. We weren't comfortable running. We've never been long distance runners. We haven't trained like that. We've been more explosive athletes. So that was completely out of our element. And obviously people will look at our shape and be like, yeah, but what was you? You were in good shape anyways to begin with. But cardio shape and muscular shape are two totally different things. Mm-hmm. They're different disciplines and they take work on both ends. Mm-hmm. It's just like if you go to the gym and you focus on your arms and you never focus on your legs. It doesn't matter because your arms are jacked. That doesn't mean they're going to transfer to your leg strength, right? So I do think that we like to test our potential. And at the end of the day, you always have to realize that your body is never, you're never guaranteed that your body's going to be the same as it is today as it will be tomorrow. Mm-hmm. So nothing's promised. I've seen so much videos where, you know, either people that are disabled or elderly men talk about, oh, like, you know, take care of your body. You know what it's like, you know, at my age with a bad back, like make sure you take care of yourself. Don't, you know, risk getting certain injuries, exercise and utilize your body while you have health. Right. Mm-hmm. So I think that's where I look at it. I'm like, I'm a healthy young man. There's no reason why I shouldn't be, trying to exercise and trying to use the potential that I got, especially being an able-bodied person that doesn't have nagging injuries, that doesn't, have anything that disables me or makes me handicapped to do certain things. I can do whatever I want to do. So I think the biggest thing is not to put the limitations on yourself and take the challenges that are uncomfortable in order to, show yourself what you're actually capable of, not what you tell yourself, but actually show yourself.
See, also, I believe another reason why we do what we do is because we feel a sense of time constraint in life, and where we have to do whatever we need to do with urgency. And I think with a lot of the physical challenges that we do also applies to life in general. You can't wait for opportunity to present itself. You need to go and take it. You can't think that, if you're having a good year, it's going to remain like that for the next year and the year after that. You know what I mean? So if you're having a good year, you got to capitalize off that good year. Or if you're having a good day or having a good week or having a great month, you got to keep continuing to take advantage of it, because if you don't and you miss that boat, you don't know when it's going to come again. And when it comes to our physical health, as you mentioned, after you hit a certain age, you won't be capable enough to do what you once did. And I think that's the thing that I think about the most. I think about when I get to a certain age and I'm no longer able to run a certain amount of distances because my knees are hurting, or, I have some kind of knee issue or some kind of back issue. Why? I think I'll look back and say to myself, why didn't I take advantage when I was younger to pursue whatever goal I wanted to achieve? So my physical goals are in the same alignment as my goals in life, where I want to get it in a certain time period, because after you hit a certain time period, those opportunities that were once presented to you will no longer be there. And the only person you can blame is yourself.
That is true. And one thing I realized with life is, bro, it goes by quickly.
Really quickly,
man.
yeah.
I remember, just thinking back, and I'm like, damn, like this didn't happen already. Even when we think about the pandemic, it's
yes.
We're a couple of years removed now
What
from
was
that.
2 years ago. That was
like 2 years ago, and it was like in full effect. So it's like time goes by so quickly. I can remember when I was in China, when you were in China, you were living out there for a while. It feels like you've been, living here the entire time.
I feel like that was a dream. Like I honestly, even though I was there for 4 years, I felt like that didn't actually happen. It felt like I woke up and I was in Toronto.
That's what I mean. Like, the reality is time goes by so quickly, so we can't spend time regretting what we didn't decide to do when we were younger. So I started to realize this as time started to pass by, and people can look at it how they want to look at it. Some people are going to be like, well, that's you do what you want. Like, everyone does what they want to do. I'm saying invest your time in what you want to invest your time, and that's the point of what I'm trying to say here. But the main thing you're going to have to realize is that time is quick, and it goes by quickly, and it goes by quicker and quicker as the years go on. So you start to realize that if you don't partake in certain things, if you don't pick up that book, if you don't try and learn that skill, if you don't try and talk to that girl, if you don't try to make that decision on what company you want to work for, or owning your own business, or doing what it is you want to do in life, the door and window are going to keep getting smaller and smaller, and eventually they're going to close shut. And you're not going to have those same opportunities as your age goes up, and as you go up in age, you're not going to have the same opportunities afforded to you when you were younger. And also what's going to happen is that you're just going to lose that same motor in terms of how you felt earlier on in life when you had so much vim and vigor, and you have all this, energy when you're young, and you have all this ambition and hope. The more older you get, reality starts to set in, and the reality would be your history. So if you haven't made it by a certain point, eventually your dreams and your aspirations are going to start to dwindle more and more. Whereas if you were ascending from when you're younger, then you'll start to see that potentially with age, if you're willing to try new things, willing to push yourself and see what limitations you have, you might be able to progress as you get older.
See, it's interesting that you say that. There's one thing that you mentioned that I felt was very interesting when you mentioned timing. And, that brings me back to certain relationships and women when it comes to relationships and timing, in the sense of if they want to build a family, what's the best timing? What's the best age range to build a family? I started thinking about that when you mentioned timing. And one thing I noticed is, as much as a woman's fertility is usually only good to a certain age range, another thing we never factor in is when they hit that certain age range, do women actually want to have kids at that point? I mean, they've already went through a certain amount of time of their life where they had no children. They've had relationships, in and out of relationships, and then you get to a certain point where you have family members or siblings that have, where you now are an uncle or an aunt to nieces and nephews, and you see how those kids are, and you only get to deal with them part-time, and then they start imagining to themselves, well, imagine if I have to deal with them full-time. I only have to deal with them part-time, and they're still a menace. But then you have another group of people that, enjoy their nephews and nieces, and they're like, wow, I wish I had some kids. So I think there's two spectrums to that kind of situation. And you were telling me something before about where you see women when they get to a certain age, where they're going to be heading to moving forward, and that's just accepting the fact that they can't have children. And if they do get into a relationship with a man that does have a child, and he's able to support the child and support them, they'll be completely fine with that, instead of looking to have their own children. And another thing that women would tend to gravitate towards, especially in the West here, because a lot of women don't prioritize marriage and relationships, long-term relationships at younger ages, is they're either going to adopt a child or they'll just get a pet to replace a child that they could have potentially had at a younger age when they missed that point, like that date.
Yes, like I notice. So usually online now the rhetoric is that, these women are getting older and they can't have kids, and you should get married when you're younger so you can have kids and give yourself a higher percentage chance, blah, blah, blah. So obviously women have been now saying that, well, we can have kids in our 30s as well as in our 20s. Like, a lot of women are saying, do we even want children? Is more of the argument, not whether they could have children or not. So I think women understand that as they age, yes, the percentage of them having a children is less likely, but I do believe that they think that it has to be an ideal situation before they even decide to have a child for many women, and I'd say more successful women for sure. If we're talking about a woman that's not successful, she might not have those same principles or strictness in terms of having a kid. But I think women that are more established in life, that have things going for them, they will make a conscious decision on whether they want a kid after a certain point in life. So I do believe that women might be open to having children when they're younger, and then by a certain age, they kind of cut off that hope because they know, one, it's going to be harder to have children. Two, they might not feel the same way about having children because, like you said, they could have a niece or a nephew that they part-time, have sleepovers with, and maybe they don't like dealing with the children, or they wouldn't want to deal with the child full-time. Maybe they prefer to just deal with the child part-time and pop in for holidays and see the progression as they go on in life without any major responsibility, right? So what some women that I've spoke to have told me is that, a lot of women now aren't so gung-ho about having children. So they're okay with maybe being a stepmother, dealing with a guy that has a child already, or even adoption. These are options that, women are choosing nowadays. So I think that when we talk about relationships and we talk about women getting older, not being able to have kids, now they have different options. And I believe that the women are fine with those options. So regardless if you want to shame them or tell them that you're getting old and what are you going to do, I think a lot of women are accepting the fact that they're not going to have children and they prefer not to have children. So it's not knock against them. It's like something that they have chosen consciously. But whether that's a problem or not within society is yet to be determined, because this would be a different type of a way of maybe constructing relationships.
Yes, I don't think it will be a problem necessarily in the West, and the reason why I say that is because in order for the population to replenish, the government still brings in more immigrants.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. So even though there's women that have that mind state of not wanting to have children, that's fine. We're just going to, allow certain level of immigration to occur in the country so that the women that choose not to have children, or the men that choose not to have children with these women, they're going to be pretty much not necessarily pushed to the side, but be really irrelevant to the grand scheme of things, because with the new immigration and the new migrants that come in there that have a different mentality in terms of the family dynamic and the family structure, they'll be able to have multiple kids or come with a certain amount of kids, and then they will basically replenish the society as a whole, whereas it will allow women and men that choose not to have children to be able to do that and not really have any penalties with that.
Yeah, that's true. They're definitely pushing immigration sometimes for those reasons. So people are a little bit more traditional, so they can have children, have a functional family, et cetera, et cetera. But what's your thoughts on men that don't want to have children this day and age? Because that same sentiment that I'm saying I'm hearing from women, I'm still hearing the same thing from men. Men don't necessarily want to have children, especially not at a young age. You're talking about, like, men obviously have a longer period of time to make this decision in terms of being a father, because let's face the facts, they can have a child at age 50, right? So they can take a lot longer to make this decision. But what's your thoughts on, men that don't want to take the burden of a child, having to pay for that child for 18 years, having to foster them, grow them up to become a man or become a woman in this life? What do you think of those type of men that rather live like a bachelor lifestyle, maybe just have girlfriends here and there? What's your thoughts on that type of person?
I think when it comes to men and them not wanting to have a child, there's multiple reasons for why men don't want to necessarily have a child. And that's because, sometimes they're incapable of providing for that child. And also they're looking at their current circumstances in terms of their finance, where they are economically in the world. Where their social status is. Men have to think about that a lot more, because they have to be the head of the household. So there's a lot more things to factor in before you decide to have a child. And sometimes when men don't have certain things in place and they don't even know where their life is heading towards, it doesn't make sense to add to that. situation, because now knowing that you have a child in this world and you have to provide for that child, and you don't have the finances to take care of that child and, you know, put them in the right institutions for them to have a great education, I mean, what's the point of having the child? If you're gonna have a child and you're just gonna throw him in the hood and he's just gonna be another statistic, he's gonna end up in the prison system, or, you know, becoming a menace in society. What was the point of having the child to begin with? So I think sometimes you need to factor those things into place before you even think of having a child. And then, you know, there's other guys that are incapable of having women in general. They're just not, they don't have the physical.
That's a good one. That's a good one that no one is going to talk about.
People don't talk about.
Some people are incapable.
Yeah, some people are just incapable of getting a woman in general. It doesn't mean that they don't want children. They're just incapable because of their lifestyle in terms of their health. Maybe they're physically unattractive, or maybe their appearance wise, they don't take care of themselves in terms of facially unattractive. You know, they mentally unattractive in the sense that they still never grew up. They're still very immature. You know, they've been babied as a child and all the way to adulthood. They never really got to that level of maturity that's necessary to even have an actual relationship. And then lack of being a provider, a lot of women won't even date these guys because they just cannot not only take care of themselves, they couldn't take care of them. So if you couldn't do either or, what's the point of even being with you? So those guys are automatically out of the running. And then the guys that are capable are looking at, do I want the stress in my life? If I'm already out here traveling, I'm able to meet all these different women from different walks of life, you know, and I'm doing my thing, do I necessarily want to just settle down, or could that be something I could postpone till an older age and then just decide to have a child when I'm more closer to death?
Well, yeah, that's interesting. No, I guess everyone grew up differently. Everyone has different things they want in their life. I just find it interesting where, you know, some people like view that as the end all be all, and other people view that as optional, and some people view it as a non-negotiable, and whatever comes with that. But I do think that, you know, the opinion on whether right or the left side of that equation, I think that's like an important thing though that people do have to consider, because again, it is something important to a lot of people, especially if they want to start a family and they want a woman capable of providing that for them, or a man that's willing to want to be there for the children as well. So that's always going to be something that you know, you're gonna get both sides of the equation where people want kids, people don't want kids, and things that have to be involved with that. But yeah, man. On a different note, like what else topics were we getting into this podcast? Because we did talk about, you know, how timing is such an important thing. We're talking about, you know, just whether it's with life, whether it's with decisions.
Oh yeah, another thing I wanted to talk about was that the situation of, you know, these dating apps and how, you know, it's one way of pursuing a woman, but the best way is, you know, in person, approaching people in person. I think.
Oh, we're talking. Yeah, we're kind of talking about.
We touched upon that.
Yes, we're talking
off air.
Off air, we're talking about, you know, this day and age and like connections, meeting people, and how that goes about, and how we're so focused on our phones, wanting to get everything through our phones, basically, because our lives are through our phones.
Yes.
Whether we're watching things through Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, everything that happens for a lot of younger people, millennials, Gen Z, is going on through our phones. 100%. So we were talking about, like, you know, at what point do we start, you know, going outside and meeting people for real and having genuine connections, talking to certain people, whether it's for friendship, whether it's for relationships, whether it's for dates, whatever that comes with. And we were talking about, like approaching women outside compared to being online, and how that is a big difference to building character.
Yeah, character development for sure.
So what's your thoughts on that? Like character, like men, because this would apply more to men. Because men have to go out there and go after what they want. So when you're talking about building character and being able to basically compose yourself enough to have a conversation with a stranger and be able to charm them or be able to at least make yourself interesting, what's your thoughts on that? Like men that are capable of doing this and men that are incapable of doing this, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, I think the people that, let's say the men that are capable of doing it is just, the only difference is that they just have a higher trial and trial and error. They just have a higher rate of trial and error rather than the guy that is incapable of doing it. So they're just more out on the field and, you know, they continuously sharpen their blade to get it you know, strong enough to slice properly. But the thing is with, you know, online apps as well as in person, the same principles that apply in person can also be applied on apps as well, dating apps as well. And the reason why I'm saying they can be applied on dating apps as well, in the sense that you need to just make a little adjustments, in the sense that instead of you just texting the individual for, you know, conversation, why don't you leave a voice note, or even take the next step, get their number and give them a call. Take the initiative and give them a call, because at least with the phone call, you can kind of see where they stand when they talk to you. You can kind of see if you're into them or if they're into you. But with text messages and through words, it's not enough to tell you what the dynamic is. It won't tell you how they feel about you. If they're talking to somebody else, you know, at least the voice tonation can kind of give you a hint if they're into you or not, and if you should pursue the conversation or not, or if they're even interesting enough to keep conversating with. And then from there, after you have a couple conversations with them, you could just get out of there. You could just eject, you know, parachute out of there, instead of you going back and forth through text when you don't know if you're where you stand on the totem pole. You take the initiative and make the call. But in person, the difference between in person is you're not looking at pictures now. Now you're seeing the person for who they are. You actually see them in person, in the flesh. You can have the conversation. You can see the body language. You can see exactly what you need to see if you have a keen eye for those things. But if you're not looking for certain things that indicate indicators of interest, then you already have a bigger problem on your hands, because you don't even know what you're looking for. But if you're able to know what you're looking for, then you can pursue this woman and then, you know, make something come out of it. And you just have more options when you approach in person, rather than you doing your approach online.
Well, my thing is eventually you're gonna have to meet in person.
Yeah.
So you have to have that same charisma,
Yes.
or same energy that can be received. So it would make more sense for you to potentially meet someone in person rather than meet them online, just because it's more authentic. Like at the end of the day, you both seen each other in the flesh. Whether you're attracted to them or not, you would have known then and there, and you would have seen their cadence, how they talk, you know, what kind of slang they use, or if they don't use slang, you know, everything that's intangible that you would have not got through an app. So I do believe that you do get more information, and chances are it's going to work out better. But my whole thing for the men's side and the character side of things, I just believe that in life, the character side of things, that of what you're exposing yourself to, is not getting what you ask for out of life. You don't always get what you ask for in life. So that's the lesson you learn with trial and error when it comes to that. So I think that's the greater message to be taught, or that needs to be learned from this exercise if you're going to go out there and do it. It's that just because you want something out of life doesn't mean it's going to be given to you. You have to go get it, and you have to work hard for it, and you're going to have to like I said, go through ups and downs, have the trial and error before you become successful at it. And that's why it builds character, because at the end of the day, whether you're ultra successful or you're not successful at it, one thing you do know is that you're resilient. And one thing that you do know is that you're trying to either work on your game or improve it slowly but surely. So obviously, if you're not doing anything that maybe would help you get better, whether that's how you dress, how you smell, how you talk, what makes you interesting, changing lifestyle choices. So if you don't work on those things, then obviously your character is not going to build to become anything. But I do believe with anything in life, just like if you fail a lot, you start to make adjustments. So people that make adjustments, that's how their character starts to build. You make certain adjustments and you start to realize that with these adjustments, I'm getting different results. With the different results is making me a different person. And knowing that fact, why would I revert? And that's the same thing like we talk about physical fitness. If you know that you were going to the gym and you're struggling to like lift 10-pound dumbbells, struggling, but you keep going and the weights are getting heavier because you're switching it up, you're doing different things, you're plateauing, you're going heavier and heavier, and then you start to realize the strength is building. Eventually, you're going to stick with that. Eventually, your character is going to build, your resilience is going to build to pain. Because first you're doing 10s and you're struggling with that, but now you're struggling with 15s, now 20s. And eventually, your character is building by you being there and doing that consistently. And that's why I talk about character being built through trial and error. And this is very much applied to just approaching women. And it doesn't have to be approaching women in order to get their number, in order to sleep with or build a relationship with, but just being able to engage with strangers, being able to have a conversation with somebody with no ulterior motives, right? Just being able to talk to people and be interesting enough that people want to get to know you, because that's the most underrated thing in life is 100%. Being a likable person. A lot of people think they can just pop in a room and like everyone's going to start liking you. It's not easy to be liked by many. It's actually very hard to be liked by many, because usually those that are liked by many are hated by many as well. So it's hard to have that happy medium when it comes to likability. So I do believe that you always have to work on your social skills when it comes to interactions, whether it's you trying to get to know somebody, try to date somebody, build a relationship, build a business partner. I think you always have to work on your personality, your charisma, the way you carry yourself, the way you talk, and the way you listen, because also you have to be able to interpret what people are telling you, remember details, because these things play a big role in likability by remembering people's names and remembering what they like or what they're into or what they do for work or whatever the case may be. So paying attention to those small details can take you far.
100%.
And I do believe that, building your character has to do with a lot of resiliency and a lot of trial and error. So,
yes, but see what the problem is, I understand that, you understand that, but how do you teach kids that are Gen Zs that, everything has been presented to them on the tip of their finger, where, when you don't necessarily need to go out and talk to a woman. You could just use a dating app, and
even friends. You can make friends online on Xbox.
Yeah, exactly.
PS5.
Exactly. So you have the online versions for game consoles. Remember, we used to have sleepovers, or even we go to a friend's house.
Do that no more.
Yeah, we go to a friend's house to play games and stuff of that nature. Now you don't even need to do all that. You have your headset, you have your gaming area. You don't even need to know who these guys are.
No interaction, no real life
interactions, no nothing like that, and you're just having conversations online, and then on the app as well, where people would just literally be communicating and not meeting up with these individuals. They'll just communicate online, and every time a meetup is supposed to occur, some kind of excuse comes up for why they can't meet up. Right? Because they feel so comfortable of just talking to the person online rather than in person. that they don't actually ever meet, or if they feel too much pressure in the meetup, then they just ghost the individual.
You know what this is reminding me of? Remember Black Mirror? They had an episode like this where they had the dating app, but you would go through so many dates until you finally match.
Yeah.
I feel like, don't you think that's where this society is going to head towards? Because with all the technological advances and having all these apps and, you know, quick dating and meet me here and marry me and blah, 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 like all this stupid shit that's going on with social media and having people engaged on their phone, wouldn't you be kind of safe to assume or safe to say that in the future, everything's going to be digital, where it's like, yeah, dating's going to be like a real resume. Like, it's just going to get so advanced to the point where it's like, how much you make? And like, it's going to be very specific.
They already do that in China, actually.
Yeah, they do that, right?
Yeah.
So I'm imagining it's gonna be very specific, and we're gonna really lose that personal connection. I think so. I think the next generations coming up are gonna have to deal with a lot of that. So what we're saying is gonna be like dinosaur talk.
Oh no, 100%. No, the reason I'm saying China already does that is because they have institutions that basically orchestrate marriages.
Yeah,
but in order to orchestrate those marriages, you have to put what schooling you went to.
Your job.
So your job.
Salary, I guess.
So what did you graduate in? What university? What kind of job do you have? What assets do you have? How much debt do you have? You know, they go really deep in those situations. They check your health. They check you know, your age, because all of those play a role in how they match you up with the individual that you want to match.
So then, if that's the case,
so they tell you who you are. They tell you who you are.
But the point of what I'm trying to say is, because I know, obviously, like, especially in China, they have a high success rate for marriages.
Yeah.
There's not many divorces compared to like America.
Yeah, not as high.
They don't have as a high of a divorce rate. So obviously something they're doing is right to a certain degree. Whether you know, people are staying in relationships like involuntarily and, you know, or by their own whim, I don't know. But the point of the matter is
the family dynamic that keeps them.
They stick together. They stick together. So something like that sounds like crazy in terms of West being from Western society.
They wouldn't buy into it.
People wouldn't buy into that because that sounds so superficial, of course.
But we already live in a superficial world.
Exactly. But what do you think they understand that we don't, or they're willing to accept that we don't?
The pragmatism of it.
The pragmatism of being married.
They're very practical people.
So they don't believe in the love aspect.
No, they don't believe in the love. Yes.
You have to get together in order to create a family.
Create a family, also sustain your way of living, and also to enhance your way of living. Two families coming together means two different incomes coming together.
Yeah.
That means you could actually put those two incomes towards a home for both parties, so the next generation can benefit off. They're very practical people.
Okay.
They're not marrying for love, and I think in the West, the notion of love kind of distorts the reality.
Disney fairy tale-ish.
Distorts the reality of life in general and how hard life can be as you as an individual trying to go through life by yourself, where they see the benefit of being together. The collaboration of two families is better than you just being by yourself in the world trying to figure out what you can do and how you can sustain your life when, you know, you're in a job situation. And you know,
I do notice here tends to be more feeling based.
Yes.
Getting married to somebody, being in a long-term relationship,
level of happiness,
because of the companionship that comes with that, the conveniency that comes with that, and being able to have a good time with somebody that you trust, right? But again, that doesn't incorporate other important factors that are going to play a role in your relationship. Like you said, the finances, you know, potentially the school you went to, potentially, you know, like all those things you mentioned that the Chinese were looking at. All those things.
It tells a person what your network is looking like.
But
you know
but like I said, but in this country we would not look at those things. But then it's like, look at the success rate of marriages compared to a country like that. So it's hard to say. Of course, politics are different, cultures are different, and people argue that to death, of course. But we're just saying mentality wise, there's a big difference between the East and the West. And sometimes you have to look at both perspectives and you still won't get a clear answer, but you do have to be able to look at both.
I think what you can do is you take a little of each civilization. There's some things that are going on in the East that is better, that you can take from it and incorporate into your life, and there's some things in the West that is better that you could take and incorporate in your life. And with that, putting those together will help you have a better life and a better perspective of how to look at things in life in general.
Yeah, life's full of perspectives, man. Life's full of perspectives. It just depends which angle, which lens you're looking at it from.
Yeah, but again, even in the East, I mean, there's other countries like Japan and South Korea who are also practical people.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they have a low birth rate. So for as practical, so for as practical as these people are that are living in the East,
they have flaws to
their own relationships, you know, and and you wonder why aren't things working out? Don't they have the family dynamics? Don't they have that?
All in all, it's hard to say there's any right method.
There's no foolproof.
There's no foolproof plan. I think that how you conduct your relationship is going to be dependent on you and the person you're with, and how you discuss that and how you come to grips on that. I just believe that the traditional sense of doing things is not really something that you should lean on in a Western society. I think we're beyond that point. I think that you're going to have a more modern type of relationship where, things are going to be a little bit different than what you're used to seeing, maybe with your family or other families before. I think that there's going to be a lot of different modifications when it comes to it. And whether you're willing to accept that or not, that'll be determined by the individual.
Yeah, and I guess that's what will determine if the relationship will last or if it won't last. But I think there has to be some kind of common understanding. I mean, you don't need to be necessarily traditional, but...
Yeah, that's why I said modern, where it's going to have to be understanding, where if you have understanding, like even with kids or not having kids, even with... some people nowadays, you see how things are going. Open relationships are going crazy nowadays. I see that happening. The polygamous type of stuff where they're doing like swing clubs and all that. We already had a guest talking about that. So point of the matter is that
swingers clubs,
people in our society, in the Western side of the world, are definitely getting more loose. Yeah. So you never know. Maybe a lot of relationships are going to be loose, they're not going to be so serious, so strict. And maybe that holds on tight, or maybe it crumbles, all the way to the bottom. Only history. If we look back in history, that maybe we get the answers. But for now, we'll see what's good.
Only time will tell. I guess that's all we can say about that.
100%.
And I think that's all we got for the podcast today. Sir. This is Far From Normal, and we are out. Deuces.